The situation was collapsing faster than they could contain it. General Harv sighed, his voice shaky as he reported to Queen Area. "The collective continues to gain ground each week," he began. "At this rate, they'll breach the core territories within a month." Area, staring grimly at the hollow pad displaying the detailed reports, asked reluctantly, "How bad is it on the ground? What's it like for our men?" Harv shook his head, rubbing his solid black eyes. "Not good. Attacks are seen as punishment by their superiors, and orders to hold ground lead to mass desertions. The collective overwhelms us every time we engage." The Queen's voice tightened with concern. "Is there anything we can do? Haven't we found something to give us an edge?" The general hesitated, struggling to respond. "We're still investigating, but so far, no answers," he finally managed to say. "I might have one," Area muttered after a long, silent pause. "The humans." Harv's mandibles opened slightly in surprise. "Humans? How could a species just now leaving their homeworld help us?" Area leaned closer, her voice low. "I'll explain, but this must remain classified. Only Level 5 personnel can hear this." Harv's, taken aback, nodded. "Yes, Your Highness." Meanwhile, on Luna, in the Sol system, Lieutenant Commander William Malkov stood at attention as Colonel Franklin entered his room. "At ease, Commander." "How's our top graduate?" Franklin asked with a smile. "Couldn't come any sooner," Sir William grinned, sitting back on his bed. "Felt like I couldn't breathe for months." Franklin's smile widened. "Congratulations, Commander. You scored a 98 on the Enhanced Infantry Platform Training, second in your class." William's triumphant grin was followed by a long swig of whiskey. But when he looked back at Franklin, his expression was more serious. "What's next?" Sir Franklin took a deep breath. "Direct orders from the brass humanity has declared war on the Yap Collective. You're assigned to the 4th Heavy Infantry Division. Your immediate commander will brief you." Move out. William stood and saluted. "Yes, sir." On my way soon, William found himself in orbit around SCM 1187 billion, running diagnostics on his suit. "Test left arm servos," the technician instructed. William flexed his arm, the suit responding flawlessly. "Good. Now the neural interface check off. Deploy your rocket launcher." William's thoughts, transmitted via his brain implant, activated the rocket launcher on his suit's right side. "Rocket ready," the onboard tactical assistant announced as the launcher whirred into position. The technician nodded in approval. "Excellent. Now test the M49 grenade launcher." The same whirring sound filled the air as the launcher moved into place on William's left side. "Grenades ready," the assistant confirmed, displaying the projected trajectory of the rounds. Still green across the board, the technician grinned. "Now for the main event, holster the M49 and spin up your Marauder 2 plasma guns." As the M49 was stowed away, William raised his arms, and the tri-barrel plasma guns spun up with a high-pitched whine. "Clear," the technician shouted, and everyone echoed the warning. William fired a round from each gun, the impacts leaving nothing but red-hot slag on the specially made targets. "All green, Commander," the technician declared proudly, stepping aside. "Just wait while we strap on your munitions, then head to the hangar bay for deployment. You've got 30 minutes. Robotic arms carefully loaded William's suit with ammo 40mm grenades, tandem 80 rockets, and a full load of plasma rounds. As the final checks were completed and the armored plates were reattached, William headed to the hangar bay. His footsteps thundered across the floor, the weight of his Ares Mark I-A enhanced infantry platform shaking the ground. Other graduates from the program joined him, their battle suits equally imposing. A full squad of these operators could take on an entire army, armed with grenades for mass infantry slaughter, rockets for armored threats, and plasma guns for general carnage. As they reached the hangar bay, William was surprised by the level of activity. Infantry and vehicles were being loaded onto heavy air transports, and the deployment alarm blared. "There you are," a sergeant shouted, running up to William's group. The collective launched a surprise attack and broke through the front line. "We need to deploy now, or we'll lose this planet. Get to your squads, go." The EIP operators scattered, their suits making a cacophony of metal against metal. William quickly found his squad and squeezed into the passenger section of their transport, taking up 2 seats at the end. "Christ," a private muttered, eyeing William. "Remind me not to piss you off." The corporal beside him smirked. "I think only enemy armor could scratch that suit, and even then, you'd die from the impact before it went through." The squad leader, Captain John, shouted over the noise. "Secure your gear and listen up. We're dropping ahead of schedule because the collective decided to screw up our day. They broke through the front line and are pushing more forces through. We need to act as the shield while reinforcements are brought in. This is a hot drop. And we're to link up with coalition forces. Any questions, the squad, William included, shouted in unison. No, sir. A sudden bang and a violent jerk threw John to the ground, rounds clattering against the hull as the pilot yelled, "We've got bandits on our tail." "Hang on." The transport shuddered as it took evasive maneuvers, but the situation quickly deteriorated. A loud tearing noise filled the cabin as half the transport's hull was ripped away, exposing the blue sky and arid landscape below. The corporal was sucked out, plummeting to his death without a parachute. The pilot was losing control, frantically praying as he gripped the controls. "This is our drop point," John shouted, grabbing a parachute and throwing it to a nearby private. "Move it." "William, you've got special gear right here." William unstrapped himself and approached the large metal object John indicated. It wasn't a parachute but a landing thruster unit, equipped with its own fusion reactor. Strapping it onto his suit, William prepared for the jump. "Let's go," John ordered, pushing the remaining survivors out of the wreckage. William followed, securing the thrusters to his frame as he plummeted from the sky. William's suit automatically activated the landing thrusters, slowing his descent as the tactical assistant calculated the trajectory. The sky was filled with the wreckage of the battle, collective air forces flooding the skies despite heavy anti-air fire. He finally hit the ground with a thunderous impact, his thrusters kicking up a storm of dust. Tossing the thrusters aside, William readied his plasma guns and scanned the area. He was close to the drop point, a sports field outside a suburban neighborhood, now ravaged by war. "William," radio checked. John's voice crackled over the comms. "You alive and ready," Sir William replied, moving to cover. "I managed to save Corporal Smith's ass. Landing was rough, but I'm on my way to the command post." As William moved through the wrecked neighborhood, he encountered a squad of collective soldiers, their squid-like heads turning as they set up a firing line. Switching to the coalition frequency, William announced, "This is Lieutenant Commander William Malkov, 1 Space Force. I'm engaging the enemy from behind." The response came quickly. "This is Captain Hale, 17th Rifle Company. We're pinned down. Any distraction you can provide would be life-saving." William grinned. On it, he fired 2 grenades into the collective line, sending bodies flying as the explosions tore through their ranks. Then, with his plasma guns spinning up, he unleashed a torrent of destructive energy, the high-velocity plasma rounds turning the battlefield into a scene of utter devastation. The collective soldiers stood no chance, their bodies vaporized, and their electronics fried by the intense bursts of energy. As the smoke cleared, William scanned the area one last time, confirming all targets were neutralized. "All clear," he reported. "Heading to you now." Hale's voice, tinged with awe, responded, "Understood. We'll hold until you arrive." As William continued toward the command post, a loud roar interrupted him. A collective tank, tracked and menacing, rumbled into view, its cannon swiveling to target him. "Danger, hostile tank," his tactical assistant warned. The tank fired, and though his shields absorbed most of the impact, the force still sent William skidding across the ground. "Shields offline," the assistant announced. William knew he had to play dead. If the tank fired again with his shields down, he wouldn't survive. He lay still, blocking out the panicked cries of Hale's squad. After several tense moments, the tank's cannon turned away, assuming its target was neutralized. "Rocket ready," the assistant announced. William fired a tandem round into the tank's side, the explosion tearing through its armor. The tank erupted in flames, followed by a deafening explosion as its ammunition cooked off. William hurried to Hale's position, taking cover as the tank's wreckage continued to burn. "By the Maker, how are you still alive?" Hale asked, his voice filled with astonishment. The arachnoid captain's face was etched with disbelief as he stared at William's suit. Just as William was about to respond, his shield generator hummed back to life, a layer of energy enveloping him briefly before returning to normal. Hale's subordinates gasped in shock. "Did the Athis share their technology with you already?" One asked, his voice filled with disbelief. William couldn't help but grin. "They didn't. We reverse-engineered it from scraps. This is human design." Hale's eyes widened further as he glanced at William's plasma guns. "Even the Athii don't have those. Nobody does." "I think you're telling the truth." William nodded, getting back to business. "We need to get to the coalition command post. Are you heading there too?" Hale chuckled, patting his vest. "We are now. We've got wounded and are low on ammo. We could use an escort." William nodded. "You're the squad leader. I'll follow your lead. Let me know when you're ready." Hale glanced at his men, already preparing to move. "Give us a minute." We'll be right behind you." As they prepared to move, William kept his plasma guns ready, scanning the surroundings for any signs of collective forces. The area was eerily quiet now, the calm after the storm of the earlier engagement. Hale's squad was gathering what little gear they had left, checking on their wounded comrade. The arachnoid captain moved with a practiced efficiency, his remaining men following his lead with a grim determination. "We're ready," Hale finally announced, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. William nodded, taking point as they began their march toward the coalition command post. The route was fraught with danger. The once peaceful neighborhood was now a maze of rubble and burned-out vehicles, every corner potentially hiding an enemy ambush. As they moved, the distant sounds of battle echoed through the streets, the occasional explosion shaking the ground beneath their feet. Despite the destruction, William's tactical assistant kept him informed of the best cover and optimal paths, minimizing their exposure. As they approached a large intersection, the tactical assistant alerted William to movement ahead. A quick scan revealed a group of collective soldiers setting up an ambush, their squid-like forms blending with the debris. William silently signaled to Hale, who immediately had his men take cover. The collective hadn't noticed them yet, giving William a crucial moment to plan the attack. He switched to the grenade launcher, the THAR providing him with the projected trajectories of the rounds. "Stay low and hold your fire until I engage," William instructed over the comms. Hale and his men acknowledged, their weapons ready but disciplined enough to wait for the right moment. William fired off 2 grenades in rapid succession, each one arcing gracefully before landing amidst the unsuspecting collective soldiers. The resulting explosion sent debris and alien bodies flying, the ambush thoroughly disrupted before it could even begin. As the smoke cleared, the surviving collective soldiers scrambled to recover, but William didn't give them a chance. He quickly holstered the grenade launcher and brought his plasma guns to bear, the tri-barrels spinning up with a familiar high-pitched whine. The plasma rounds tore through the remaining collective forces with terrifying efficiency, their defensive positions obliterated in seconds. Any attempt to return fire was futile. The kinetic dampening shields on William's suit reduced incoming fire to little more than a minor annoyance. The last of the collective soldiers fell, their bodies charred and smoking, the air thick with the smell of burned flesh and ionized air. "Clear," William reported, his voice calm and controlled. Hale's squad moved up, taking over the now secured intersection. "Impressive work," Hale commented, his eyes scanning the devastation left in William's wake. "We couldn't have done that without you." William simply nodded, keeping his focus on the mission ahead. "Let's keep moving. The command post isn't far." The group continued through the devastated neighborhood, the occasional burst of gunfire or distant explosion reminding them that the battle was far from over. William's sensors picked up signs of life ahead, likely the coalition forces they were meant to link up with. As they rounded a corner, the coalition command post came into view. It was a makeshift fortress, hastily constructed from whatever materials were available: sandbags, concrete barriers, and debris. Coalition soldiers were manning the defenses, their expressions tense but resolute. As William and Hale's squad approached, a coalition officer stepped forward, his face lined with stress and exhaustion. "Lieutenant Commander Malkoff," I presume the officer asked, his eyes narrowing as he took in William's imposing form. "We've been expecting you," William nodded, stepping forward. "I've linked up with Captain Hale's squad. What's the situation?" The officer sighed heavily, motioning for them to follow him inside the command post. "It's bad," he admitted. "The collective's breakthrough caught us off guard, and we're struggling to hold them back. They've pushed deep into our territory, and if we don't stop them here, they'll have a clear path to our main supply lines. We've already lost several outposts, and our forces are spread thin." He led them to a holographic map of the battlefield, the lines of engagement shifting ominously as the collective forces advanced. "We're coordinating a counterattack, but we need more time to gather our forces. Your job, Commander, is to buy us that time. We need you to hold the line here, at this choke point," he said, pointing to a strategic location on the map. "If the collective gets through there, they'll have free rein to overrun our command post. We can't let that happen." William studied the map carefully, his tactical assistant already analyzing the terrain and possible approaches. "Understood," he replied. "I'll position my squad and reinforce the choke point. We'll hold the line." The officer nodded, relief evident on his face. "We're counting on you, Commander. Reinforcements are on the way, but until they arrive, it's up to you." With a final nod, William turned to Hale. "Your squad will support mine. We'll set up a defensive perimeter and prepare for the collective's next assault. Hale's men were already moving, setting up positions and fortifying the choke point. William moved to the front, his plasma guns primed and ready. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness, the tension palpable as they waited for the inevitable attack. Finally, the sound of approaching engines and the clattering of metal feet signaled the arrival of the collective forces. The collective emerged from the ruins like a tidal wave, their numbers overwhelming. The squid-like soldiers marched in perfect unison, supported by towering war machines that bristled with weaponry. William's tactical assistant calculated the odds, and they weren't good. But William had faced worse. "All units, prepare to engage," he ordered, his voice steady. The first wave of collective soldiers hit the choke point like a hammer, but William and his squad were ready. The air filled with the roar of gunfire, the hiss of plasma rounds, and the thunderous explosions of grenades and rockets. William's plasma guns spat death, each round leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The collective war machines fired back, their energy beams slicing through the air, but William's shields held firm, absorbing the brunt of the assault. Hale's squad provided covering fire, their rifles spitting out a relentless stream of bullets that tore through the collective ranks. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the collective struggled to push through. The choke point was a natural bottleneck, forcing the alien soldiers to bunch up, making them easy targets for William's heavy weapons. Grenades exploded in their midst, sending bodies flying and creating gaps in their formations. William took full advantage, his plasma guns mowing down the survivors with brutal efficiency. The collective war machines, though formidable, were too large to maneuver effectively in the confined space. William targeted them with his rockets, the tandem warheads slamming into their armored hulls and detonating with devastating force. One by one, the war machines crumpled under the assault, their smoldering remains littering the battlefield. But the collective wasn't done yet. Reinforcements poured in, wave after wave of soldiers and machines. The ground shook under the relentless advance, and the air grew thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning metal. William's tactical assistant warned him of the increasing strain on his suit systems, but he pushed it aside. There was no time for caution. The fate of the command post, and possibly the entire planet, rested on their ability to hold the line. "Keep up the pressure," William shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Don't let them break through." His squad fought with a ferocity born of desperation, each soldier determined to hold their ground no matter the cost. The collective forces continued to press forward, but their momentum was beginning to falter. The choke point had become a killing ground, and the bodies of the fallen were piling up, forming a gruesome barrier that slowed the advance of those behind them. As the battle raged on, William's tactical assistant finally detected a change. The collective forces were beginning to pull back, their once relentless advance now a disorganized retreat. The coalition's reinforcements had finally arrived, and the collective, realizing they were about to be outflanked, were withdrawing to regroup. William didn't let up, directing his squad to press the advantage. They pushed forward, driving the collective back and reclaiming lost ground. The tide of the battle had turned, but the cost had been high. The battlefield was littered with the dead and dying, both human and alien. The once peaceful neighborhood was now a landscape of ruin and devastation, the price of victory etched into every shattered building and burned-out vehicle. When the last of the collective forces had retreated, William finally allowed himself to take a breath. His suit was battered and scorched, his systems pushed to their limits, but they had held the line. The coalition command post was safe, for now. "Well done," Commander, the coalition officer said, his voice filled with gratitude as he approached. "You and your squad saved us all today." William nodded, his mind already turning to the next battle. "We did what we had to." "The war isn't over yet." Hale stepped forward, his squad gathering around. "We couldn't have done it without you, William. Your firepower, your tactics, you're a game changer." William looked at the arachnoid captain and his weary but resolute soldiers. "We fight together, or we die alone," he said simply. "Today we fought together." If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.